Hi, Patricia. So,
Hello.
yeah, you had a question?
I have a question about grounding. Is it important to do a separate exercise to ground? Because I feel that the meditation is doing it also.
Yeah, it's a really good question. So, do you have to do another grounding exercise in addition to doing the turning within meditation technique? That's your question. So, the short answer is no. You don't have to do an extra grounding technique because this, as you just kind of said, you're experiencing the fact that this meditation technique that I taught you, turning within meditation, automatically is making you feel more grounded. Why is that? Well, if you think about it, what is grounding really? Grounding really is about connecting ourselves with ourselves in a more fundamental, a more expanded, a more profound way. That's really what grounding is. Sometimes you'll hear a lot of these spiritual teachers, they'll talk about, well, you need to put your feet flat on the ground and then you'll feel grounded and you need to feel connected with the earth. That's a common phrase. You hear that very, very frequently in other meditation classes or other workshops, spiritual workshops and so forth, where they may be doing some quote unquote grounding exercises. That's not grounding really. I mean, it might make you feel a little bit better, temporarily or whatever, but that's not really grounding if you think about it, because 8 billion people on planet Earth, that's about how many people, human beings there are now on planet Earth. 8 billion of them, are they walking around with their feet off the ground? No, they're walking around with their feet on the ground. They're not floating around. So they already have their feet on the ground, but how many of the 8 billion people on planet Earth are grounded in the way that most people are using this phrase from a spiritual or a neurophysiologic or however way you want to be looking at that phrase, grounding? There's lots of people who are not grounded people. They're spaced out. Because what's the opposite of feeling grounded? There's a phrase in America we use, we call it airy fairy or spaced out. People can't focus their mind. Those people are typically what most people are describing as ungrounded, not grounded. So, so to ground the person, you need to do the opposite of that, which is create a situation where the people feel more connected. And when they feel more connected, they have a greater ability to focus their mind and not be airy-fairy and spaced out in their waking state. Waking state meaning when they're walking around with their eyes open, when they're awake, when they're wide awake. And that's really, as you've said, that's what you've experienced as a result of the turning within meditation technique. So as you know, the technique itself is not about focusing. It's not about feeling grounded. It's not about feeling anything in particular. And it's not about focusing the mind. But the side effect, the benefit of doing this simple technique that I've taught you is that you can focus better and not be airy-fairy is the American expression, not be spaced out in our waking state. That's really what being grounded is, because the technique of turning within does what? It allows our mind to get out of this 8-inch plastic bucket part of itself, this little limited part of itself, and connect with the larger sense of self, the expansion of our conscious capacity of experience is what naturally happens as a result of doing turning within meditation. That's really what feeling grounded really is all about. That's the fundamental effect of the technique, is connection like that. You think about it from a physical structure standpoint, people, you talk about a building, an office building or a house or whatever, and what makes it really strong is having a strong foundation underneath the ground. The deeper the foundation, the stronger the connection between the building and the earth. And therefore it's more stable and secure and all that stuff. Well, same thing with the mind. the more we connect within ourselves, the stronger our foundation within our mind is. And therefore, that's really what grounding is all about. Right? Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yes, because it feels much better. I've been doing exercises for years now, but with the turning within meditation, it feels much better.
Yeah. Yeah. It's much more effective and it's quicker and it's really effective because, like I said, it's your mind connecting with itself, really. We're not getting outside of our mind. We're connecting, our mind is connecting with a larger sense of its own self. That is still our mind. But as in the Houston Astrodome analogy that the psychology professor told one of my meditation students 50 years ago, I've been borrowing for 50 years. You know, people can see that on my website, the Houston Astrodome analogy. In that analogy, it's about connecting with that larger sense of self, which is the rest of the football stadium. In his analogy, the psychology professor's analogy, turning the light switches on in the rest of that football stadium that has been unused. That football stadium is still our mind. It's not something other than ourselves. It's our mind that has not been accessible to the little 8-inch bucket part of ourselves that he talked about, the little 16-centimeter bucket part of our, the mind. That's the thing. So yeah, that's great. That's very cool. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Yeah,
Yes, thank you very much
you're
for
welcome.
your,
This will be helpful for people to, yeah,
yes,
to hear.
for sure.
Yeah.